yes, we are all looking for our life's purpose, and maybe we found it and maybe we haven't, but there is something right now that fills you with purpose, right? Not just motivate. I think people confuse that with motivation sometimes. Now, what is purpose? What is the reason that you're doing everything, right? What is that thing for right now? It doesn't mean that it can't change, but we have to be able to define it in some way, shape, and form.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be an interesting one. Our guest is a leadership coach, former Marine, and founder of Bellowood Coaching, helping business owners become stronger leaders and build more effective teams. John Sheldon, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael.
Thank you. And we absolutely love having you. And this is your first time on the show. And so our listeners are probably going, well, tell us more. This sounds very interesting, your background. Tell us a little bit about your career until leading you up to what you're doing today.
Yeah. I appreciate you asking, man. And again, thank you for having me on. So I grew up in a really tiny town just across the lake from you, like we were just talking about. And I actually grew up in a really small rural town outside of Rochester, New York. I decided that in the early 2000s, 2004 to be specific, that decided that I wanted to join the military and ended up joining the Marines in 2005. And I joined the Marine Corps Infantry, which is ground pounder, we call them, fighter, whatever you want to call it, if you're unfamiliar with the term infantry. And I did 2 deployments to Iraq, back to back, essentially. So from 2005 to 2009, I was a point man and then turned squad leader. So I was in charge of 13 Marines. And through that, we've done between patrols and missions over 200 of combat missions. From there, I got out and went to college and didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, but landed a job in finance as an internship, which ended up turning into a 14-year career. I ran and operated my own financial team, started as a private practice and then turned into a team of 4, and then was actually recruited by another company to run an area for their financial planning firm. And I did that for another 8 years from there. So in total, 14 years. And during that whole space, I started coaching financial advisors specifically in 2013, 14. The companies would pay me to do that. And then as I got more into the directorship level space and more development, I realized more and more, going back to my more Marine Corps days, that was really the space I wanted to be in. And so a few years ago, I've owned and operated Bellowood since 21, but a few years ago, I made the official plunge and talked to my employer, and they actually ended up becoming my largest client, which is a pretty interesting story. And then went full-time into the coaching and consulting basis, for coaching and advising, really.
Wow. What a journey. I mean, I can't think
seems like
of
a
better,
lifetime.
Yeah, I can't think of better training to develop your own leadership and how people are motivated than the work you did with the Marines.
Yeah.
And then translating that into the corporate world would have been very interesting. I think it's really... Well, I would be really curious, in all of those, what do you see as being the core thread that came through the experience in the Marines and then into working in the corporate world and now running your own business? What has been that common thread that sort of you've brought all through those?
It's a great question. I'd say this one word that always keeps coming back, at least for what I do now, would be that purpose word. I believe that's really, there's always a strong sense of purpose with every Marine that you find. I believe that the work I was doing in financial planning was very purposeful. and this now is a big topic that I talk about with people, especially on the leadership teaming and even self-development side, is that word purpose. And it's such a big driver for the majority of people. And one of the things that I believe is massively overlooked, it's more of like a cliche word, but most people I run into don't ever take the time to, or have never taken the time to really plan it out or think about how are they living a purposeful life? How are they leading purposefully? And if we understand that about our people, and not only about ourselves, then how much better leaders could we be? And that's a whole different topic, which I'm sure we'll get into. But that's the word that I would say is a common thread, is that purpose word.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, people, the cliche is like, finding my purpose. I got to find my purpose. And so I often think that, often purpose finds you, and you invent purpose, potentially. And the military, they provide you with a purpose.
Yep.
And so there's all these different layers, I guess, or levels of purpose. But then as an individual, many people could be in the military or corporate world or in their own business and yet not have a grasp of what is the purpose. Why are we here? Why are we doing, or lose purpose or not believe in the purpose? I mean, you would have seen maybe that in the military. It's like not everybody is going to be right there at the same level of purpose or get disconnected from purpose.
Yeah, you just nailed it with there's different levels, I think. I was challenged by a workshop I was doing probably like a month ago. And they brought up a great point. They said, this individual said, I think I'm trying to find that. Isn't that what life is all about, is finding purpose? Like, well, what is that? And I think that's true. Life's purpose, I think, is different than everybody has a purpose right now. Right. And there's always this draw to figure out what is it all for. I think that's a much more deeper existential question. But we all are purposeful and have purpose. And again, even that I think is a way to define it even on a smaller level of, yes, we are all looking for our life's purpose. And maybe we found it and maybe we haven't, but there is something right now that fills you with purpose, right? Not just motivation. I think people confuse that with motivation sometimes. Now, what is purpose? What is the reason that you're doing everything, right? What is that thing for right now? It doesn't mean that it can't change, but we have to be able to define it in some way, shape, and form.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And I would say many people, just do not take the time to get there. And even, thinking that it's got to be this big thing, just like you said, it's like if you wrote down today, we could find there's a purpose for today. And if we had that, it'd be better than not having that. And then you take it to the next level. Now, speaking on that, you've gone from these career transitions, and we often in this industry, people transition to, maybe becoming a bookkeeper or really a business owner. And it can happen very quickly. It's like maybe someone's working in finance, or they're thinking about, I want to get a job and I've done something finance related. I'm going to start a bookkeeping business. And so they may have worked for somebody but they've never had a business. And that big transition, what is the difficulty in transitions? And you've experienced a lot of them yourself, and probably seeing your people, like coaching financial people and planners, and it was planners, right? Financial planners.
Yeah.
It's a very similar trajectory, right? They're building their little book of business, or maybe they're building a team or a business. Like there's all different levels there too. And so you would see some of these people having big challenges. What can they expect when they're doing these transitions?
Excellent question. I think the one thing that I noticed that usually hits a pretty hard spot on people's souls is the word cost. I don't think people, when they're going through transition, properly identify what decisions cost a lot of times, or at least plan it out, because generally speaking, they're too scared, or they're bought into maybe the vision, which is absolutely needed. And you need to have that, there's just that saying, burn the boats, right? I'm sure that you've heard that. I just saw like a social media thing on it the other day. And I think there's the sense that you need to be all in. I'm not disagreeing with that, but we can't take a couple battles in history and be like, oh, just burn the boats, like forget everything else. Like, no, you have
I'm
to.
sure people have done that, and
Right.
there's probably haven't been written. That history is not. I'm sure we'll find equal history there.
Exactly. And probably not as equal as we want to make it believe either, right? Most
Yeah.
battles are won with better contingency plans, right? And these are baked
Interesting.
in. And when we start thinking about missions, like going back to the Marine Corps stuff, that's always baked in. And that's what we call accepting the cost. If this happens and there's a cost to this thing, like what do we do next? That's how most battles and most missions are won, is by thinking through the challenges and the obstacles that are inevitably going to come. Like the famous thing in the Marines is if you have your plan's inevitably going to go wrong. Like we take all this time to build this thing that's going to go wrong, but the purpose of building is for when it goes wrong, we've planned for that. And I think that's one of the things in transition that people really get stuck on is they do a lot of business building. They do a lot of building the business plan. They think marketing. They hire people like me, right? They hire people like yourself, right? And they never really identify and accept the cost of what this is going to take, right? Because they don't want to. They don't want to get freaked out, and I understand that. Like they don't want to get freaked out over maybe, oh, this all couldn't go right. I'm going to get scared and scare myself out of it. Totally valid fear. But accepting the cost is how you push forward in the most effective way, at least in my experience, working in transitions, is once you've accepted it, now you realize that, okay, well, those are the worst case scenarios. At least I know what to do if that comes up. And that builds confidence, because that is what makes transitions effective, is being confident. If we haven't accepted the cost of what things could possibly go wrong and plan for those, generally we have a lot less confidence in the entire plan in general when even the smallest thing starts to go wrong. Maybe your client ends up that you were really hoping on says no. Oh boy, well, if we've accepted the cost of what that could be, then that's a lot easier to palate, right? If we've never thought about those types of things or not enough, then it becomes really, really challenging in those transitions when things go wrong, and they will go wrong.
It reminds me of a quote from Chris Hadfield, who's a Canadian astronaut, but would have had similar military background. And he said, the biggest job or what they do every day is just plan for failure.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's right there with what you're saying. And it's not talked about a lot. Like your take on, burn the boats or have a contingency plan. It's very refreshing. And it is what you think about it. It's like everything you said was right on, I think, in that why would someone not want to plan for failure? Well, they don't want to fail. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to be freaked out about what could happen. But when you do, it's actually like accessing that confidence is what's needed to be successful and to do a really good job of it.
Exactly.
I really like that thread. It's just right there with, sure, burn the boats, but have a contingency plan, right? Save a couple of kayaks or canoes to get back if you need to, or to go somewhere else, whatever the case may be. So I like that. Now how do you, like military kind of great experience, I would imagine, to really live this all the time, every day. Many people don't have that background, and they come into these things with, maybe not the mindset, preparedness. Is there things that they can do that would help them get into that kind of planning and face that fear and have those breakthroughs? Maybe you think of the clients that you've worked with where it's like, wow, they're just not tuned into this and need to be. And what is it? How do they have a lift in that area?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think even being in the military, it gives you a base, but every challenge is different in life. I've stumbled just as many as any other person has. I think the frameworks, and this is what I would say to answer your question, is a lot of the initial work I personally even do with clients is developing these frameworks to make decisions. And most people, that's where the gap is. That then when I start breaking down, like what did the military, the Marine Corps specifically, really teach me how to do well, and that's make tough decisions when it matters. And the way that they do that is by over practicing situations, preparing for what inevitably will go wrong, and then also decision-making frameworks to make those types of situations a lot easier, where there's check boxes. right? So I teach a lot of people. It's something that I've come up with, but it's clarity, condition, cost. That word cost again, right? Align, act, adapt. So something super easy, 6 steps again for your audience: clarity, condition, cost, align, act, adapt. And what we want to do is we want to get clear on the decision that we have to make, right? This is truly what we need to do, right? Then we need to assess the condition that we're in, meaning, do I have everything I need? This is how military members make decisions, right? We do every time before you go out on a patrol or a mission, whatever you want to call it, you're doing a gear check. Do we have everything we need for this mission, right? And it will change. Sometimes you're going to take the same gear for 10 missions in a row, and sometimes you're going to need a ladder, for instance, But getting clear on what you actually want and what are we deciding on? What is the action we need to take? Then we assess the condition, do a gear check. Do we have everything we need? We establish the cost, which we've already talked about, right? Accepting what can go wrong and planning for it. Then we align our first step. And what that means is a lot of people just move straight to action. But I mean, I've done this myself in my life, Michael. I'm not sure if you can attest to this too, but I've had the best plan, and then the first action has nothing to do pushing my business forward or pushing this thing I have in life or my relationship or whatever it might be. It's like, yeah, so great. But when that first action, we've almost already predetermined it. And that's wrong. We need to be able to sit in the moment and say, is the action that we're about to take in alignment with our clarity, like what we're actually doing? Then you act. And the last part is that you adapt, right? You have to be humble enough to take a look back at yourself and the decisions that you've made, and is it working or is it not? And I think to go back to your original question, what can people do? It's create systems like that. Whether you steal part of it and use part of it, I hope you do, right? Or you create one your own, but that's easy, repeatable, and that makes sense to you to make decisions quicker. Because going back to that word confidence, that's what really, really matters. That's really what you get. I mean, if you boiled it all down, man, the Marine Corps gave me so much confidence. I think people look at me now and they'd be surprised to hear that I was like this emo rock band kid with a blue mohawk. And on the inside, I was terrified. I was so self-conscious about so many things in my life. And when I really looked back at my Marine Corps experience, that's what it really gave me. And that's kind of this weird edge, is this confidence in myself that I've already completed and accomplished some pretty crazy stuff in my really late teens, early 20s. And some of that transfers over now into just frameworks that my mind goes through of developing confidence to make decisions that aren't always going to go right, but I've already considered those.
I think there's a lot, and I'll sort of start at the very last thought, which was you sort of have this childhood, you're growing up, you're going through, that's who you were. Then you went and did these other things which challenged you, shaped you in different ways, and it was done through actions, right?
Yep.
And the military was there, and it was a container to take a bunch of actions and shift your thinking, and lots of opportunity for success and failure. And through success and failure come new confidence and layers and layers and layers of psychological shaping, right?
Yeah.
And we think of business, running a business, it's like, oh, I'm just a business owner today. It doesn't make us, an elite Marine. It's, we need to do all the success and failure part to shape who we are as a business owner, a business person. And the only way to do that is taking actions. Really?
Yes.
Right? And like you said, it's like you get that clarity. What's the plan? Do I have everything I need? And then I got to go do it. And it's the doing it that's going to, hey, I did well at this. Well, if you failed and you never did it again, well, we're not going to get the lift. But if you went, you did, hey, that worked kind of, it didn't, you keep going, you end up getting to this new level of confidence, which is no one can explain it. You can talk about it, but only those that go through it actually experience the transformation from I did not have the confidence and now I do.
Yep.
And it's like it's like this magical place. However, it's not a magical formula.
No.
It's called do something and success or fail at it and keep going. And I think for our listener, that's inspiration to, there's some rough stuff. Like different levels of the game, right? So you're just starting a business, you need some clients, you got to bang on doors, got to knuckle, you got to reach out, do all these things that you probably do not want to do. And if you don't do them, nothing's going to change. And if you do them, you might never like it, but yet you will get better at it. You will get new levels of competence out of it. And that's in the new, and then in the later stage, maybe you got to hire some people. Well, that's scary and you're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. But if you don't do it, you're never going to get to a place where you have what you want to build, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's really interesting take from your perspective into get out there, get clear, and follow that process. And hopefully we can get that, the acronyms in the show notes where they can start taking the action like you did in the military to actually get to a new level of confidence for themselves. And that translates to a lot of things in their life and their business with their clients.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this word too, and I know there's so much talk around this, but it's so true. Like, you need to fail a little bit too. I don't know if there's anything that's built better confidence or better tough skin, I guess, and especially when you're running a practice or building a team than failing. Like, you might not hire the right person at the first, right? That you might think you might not make a great investment here or there, and it's really how you bounce back from that and get resilient that's going to really boost your confidence too. And again, I know it's not breaking any Guinness World Records of like knowledge, but it's just the truth. This living life experience and showing up. I've always had this picture in my mind of kind of coming to the end, and this is maybe kind of off topic, but kind of on topic too, of like coming to the end of life just kind of exhausted, like not in a perfect state, like having some scars and baggage. I think that's what it's all about, truthfully. And I think when you run into people like that, that's who I notice are running the best businesses, and they don't expect everything to be perfect. They're not only are they ready for it, but they've experienced failure. And we don't need to basically make this massive failure that everything's going to explode in our lives, but take some chances in the beginning. Take some chances throughout, even if they're small ones, and just see how they work and kind of get your teeth kicked in a little bit too. I think it's a massive part of this.
I agree. And it's, think about it, like success doesn't bring much growth, but failure does. And
failure sure does, yeah.
And if you're really good at something and you're successful every single time, well, you're just successful at that. You're really good at that, whatever the case may be. And typically people aren't doing that. There were, the barriers in life, the unlocking of the next level requires some kind of transformational growth to get there. And it's just one of those things. That's where it will be doing something and just expect to be bad at it or not great at it. And then you do it again, you get a little bit better. And each one of those unlocks another level of the game. I think that's where, getting back to your original point, was purpose, right? If you have a great big purpose and you're really clear about your purpose, the failing thing transforms as well. It's like, I want to get to the top of the mountain. I'm so passionate about the top of the mountain. Gonna skin my knee, gonna break a couple ropes. If I can get through this valley here and there, I will get there because I really want to be there. If I didn't want to get there, it's like, why do I want to skin my knee? No thanks.
Yeah.
So your purpose was really interesting how we brought that full circle, but really having that clarity and that purpose and really getting clear on it helps to go out and do those failures. So I always, when we're on shows like this and talking about these things, I think of the listener that might be just getting started, excited about their business or wanting to grow their business. It's all super possible. Like, it's not anywhere far from the impossible. It's just like, it's anything that someone wants to build for a bookkeeping business. If we asked them and they told me, I would say that is 100% possible, right? Maybe 99.999. We'll give it 5 nines.
Yeah.
Right. But a whole bunch of things that are going to make somebody think it's not possible and really the only way to get there is to start, right? And to take action.
Start and take action. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not a really easy way, man. You just kind of got to start.
Yeah. So this has been cool. Now, you tell us a little bit about what you do, how you help people get to their transformation and get started and do different things. I'd love to know your take on it and share with our audience.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. So for every client, I think it's really important, and this another word, the word purpose is going to come in again. I believe it's purpose is a part, and it's actually the first pillar of a four-pillar system I call building your personal performance blueprint. And you can use that as an individual tool and as a team tool, and that goes over four basic topics, right? The first one being purpose, like what Simon Sinek wrote that famous book, Start with Why, right? It's really that why, like why am I who I am? Why do I do what I do? And the reason that's really important is because, like we talked about, when trials and tribulations come into your life, we need that purpose again. We need to connect to it of like, what is actually happening here? When we have a decision to make, does it connect with my purpose? If it's a no, then you just don't do that thing, right? The next pillar would be that vision, or what I call the compass, right? If we know why we're doing it or why we exist, right? Then the next piece is, where are we going? So everyone needs to know that. And I've gathered this not only from my personal experience, but we're just working with a lot of high performance people for the last 15 years, we'll call it. Actually, more like 20 years. Right? This is something that they all have in common. They have a firm grasp on their purpose. They have a firm grasp on where they're going, or what we're going to call vision. Right? My favorite way to do that is to do a day in the life. Tell someone to live their life, just write about a day 3 years from today. Tuesday, a Wednesday, it doesn't really matter to me, but write about it. Wake up. Tell me what you do. Right? Not just about what your business is at. That's where business owners always go. They always go to the business is doing this, I've got a team of this, and that's a part of it for sure. But your compass has to be something a little bit different, a little bit deeper than that. Like, what are you doing? What life are you living? I generally pick a birthday when I do it for myself, right? So I'm coming up on my 40th birthday, which is next year. And my vision, this last iteration of it, ends then, right? We'll see how I work out. Right now, it's going pretty cool. But then we go to the next pillar, which would be ecosystem. So when we've covered those two big topics, then the next one, where I think most people forget, is this word ecosystem. Who are we surrounding ourselves with? But in 2026, it's so much different than that. You and I were chatting beforehand, and it's really impressive that you've had a podcast since 2014. And the ecosystem, I'm sure your ecosystem has changed so much in those 12 years. And I think that's something that we really need to pay attention to. Not only the people that we're closest to, but the tools, the technology. You and I were talking about the platform we're using right now. Like, that is all a part of our ecosystem. And not only to understand that, but understand what is building and breaking that piece of you. Like, what do you really need? We use a skill in coaching called borrowing from that really consistently in coaching, and at least in the work that I do. And that's taking something unrelated from your past and bringing that back into the future. Like, what environment do you really feel like you thrived in? Are you living that environment right now? Do you have that? I rent this office space, not because I need to. I could easily work out of my home. But what I realized in COVID was that I was not good at sitting in a house by myself. It just wasn't good for me. And so I choose to a piece of my business that, again, I do not need to spend money on, quite frankly, is this office space, but I do it because it's a massive piece of my environment. There are other individuals that so the small team here at this office as well. That's not my team, that I get a lot of energy from. We're all about the same age. We're all running businesses. That energizes me, being around that physical space, the way I've set up my office, right? And that fourth one, so that's ecosystem. And we have to really pay attention to that, like who and what we're surrounding ourselves with, is motivation. And this is one of those big topics that most people, fight me on. It's like, well, who cares about motivation? Get discipline. The act of being disciplined has to start with motivation. If you say, I want to be disciplined or are disciplined, it started at some point in time with a motivation to be that thing. You don't wake up as a toddler and I'm just like, yeah, I just run 4 miles a day. It doesn't work like that. We have to find something that motivates us. And so it used to actually be discipline. And I said, well, what's the core of discipline? It is actually motivation. It is that spark. We all need to know what actually energizes us, what gets us going. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's material things. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's situations or time. Sometimes it's words like peace. We all need to understand what those things are. So originally, to sort all those things out, that's, we've got purpose, vision, ecosystem, and motivators, right? Those are what the 4 things that with every client I try to identify really, really quickly. And from there, we start getting into the meat and potatoes of the coaching, which is high accountability, high action-driven work. So Everything that I do is tracked with my clients. So every single session they are leaving. It's a necessity that they have to sign up for. You're leaving with an action step after every session. You're getting a session note. We're creating metrics for you, right? That are you driven, because we need to be able to track this stuff and be able to use this sort of like data driven coaching work, right? That these two worlds, I believe, marry really well together, of the coaching aspect of diving deep and uncovering obstacles, and finding growth patterns and taking people to the next level. And also this aspect of, well, let's see what's working. Not what you think is working, what's actually working, based on all those feelings and thoughts and opinions, like what actually is moving the needle for you. So it's a mix of those two things, right? Holding people accountable with some of the online systems that I'm using every single time we're meeting, right? And being tactfully tough. I think one of the most people will say this, and I feel like I know I'm a really empathetic person, but what I would call myself is tactfully tough and radically honest. Most people, that's what I'm getting referred to, is they don't have many people in their life telling them the truth. That's a harsh way to say it, but it is the truth. Especially if you're running a company, most people aren't telling you exactly what's going on. You're assuming, or you're living in your own head, right? CEOs have this massive problem with that. Directors have a massive problem with that, where they lack some of that accountability of just honesty in their life. That's something that they really drive for. So that's a big piece of my coaching too, is not only, finding out at a deep sense who they are and how they operate, holding them accountable, but a part of holding them accountable is saying the truth, right? Is openly talking and openly challenging your beliefs, and making you what I call prove it. You think that way. Okay, awesome. Prove it. That's where people get really stuck sometimes, Michael. It's like they've never been asked to prove their work or show their work. It's like, I'm a really driven person. Awesome. Prove it.
I love it. This is very, very refreshing. And I want to say, I'm sure your clients get a lot of results based on what you've told me. And then maybe some of our listeners want to call you up and say, prove it.
Man, that would be epic if that ever happened. I'll be honest.
Because that's it, right? I mean, it's, I think the formula that you just sort of laid out, I mean, I've been around the coaching thing for a long time. Yeah. And I will tell you, everything you just said right there, that's them are the ingredients for results.
We're getting my clients are getting a lot of results. It's, again, coaching isn't about you, nor is leadership.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, you have to know where you're going, be connected with it, build a plan, and then take action and get through the barriers and the blockages, right? And those, if it was easy, they'd have just done it already, but they haven't. And so they need to interrupt that with someone like yourself to actually do it. And I love your energy. I love your way of thinking around these things, and your background, fantastic. So I think there's some listeners here that probably listen and thinking, hey, this sounds like this would work for me. Not everybody wants that either, right? Like exactly. You've got to find a coach that's going to fit with you, and some people aren't ready to just jump off the diving board and whatnot. But if you feel it's probably the right thing. Call this coach up and get working on your big plan and get there, because I think you have some really great stuff.
Well, thanks,
and that's
man.
exciting for me, because I know there's they're not listening just because they like the sound of our voices, right? They want something. They want something in their life, and so that's why we do what we do. And so if that's you listening, take some action here. We've got a great coach on the line, which is cool.
Thanks, Michael. Those are all the nice things.
I'm sure people are going to go, hey, how am I going to learn more about this coach? I want to, your website, maybe your social media. What's the best way for them to learn more? Or if you have some resources, what do you got there?
Yeah. So the best way to learn is the website. I've been told, look, Bellawood's not easy to say or to spell, but it's Bellawood. So BELLEAUWOOD .coach, not .com, .coach. is my website. And then the same thing. So Bellawood_coaching is my Instagram. And the reason I usually point people to the Instagram or the website, one, I wrote every word on, I feel it's crazy I have to say that now, but like when I made my website, I wrote every single word of it. So you get a really good taste of like, not only when you're listening to the podcast, but who I am. But the Instagram stuff is actually, I do a lot of like professionally made videos on topics. They're all 90-second. That is for the community. I don't expect to get anything from that. It's for people. It's one of the things that I do because I want to give back. And so I highly suggest that you follow that account. You can follow my LinkedIn too, which is Jonathan Sheldon. And if you put Jonathan Sheldon Bellawood Coaching or Jonathan Sheldon Coaching or something like that, you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn. But those are probably the best ways if you want to get in touch or get a hold of me to stay in touch.
Beautiful. I love it. We'll have those in the show notes as well. Just click down there and click away at that. And John, this has been fantastic. Really refreshing, really inspirational for me. I'm sure it was for our guests as well. So, sorry, our listener. So I want to thank you on behalf of them and for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Michael. This is great. You're an excellent host and awesome questions. So appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And really, the pleasure has been all ours. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.